Exposed, how a blind date joke turned into an amazing love story that transformed 3 lives forever. Sarah sat in her small, cluttered classroom, the green chalkboard behind her a canvas of equations and diagrams, a stark contrast to the whirlwind inside her. At 32, she felt the weight of a small Midwestern town pressing down on her, each economic downturn a reminder of her precarious situation. Bills piled like mountains around her kitchen table, her aging mother's health steadily declining, invoking a fear that gnawed at her insides. She wasn't just a schoolteacher, she was the bedrock for 2 lives, the students who looked to her for guidance and the mother whose sacrifices had lit the spark of her passion for education. Each month brought uncertainty, a gnawing anxiety that she could barely contain. Just when she thought life couldn't become more chaotic, her friend Rachel shoved her into the world of dating through a blind date. "You need some excitement, Sarah. Just get out there," Rachel had insisted, oblivious to the constant storm brewing in Sarah's mind. As Sarah prepared for the evening, she fought the creeping dread threatening to claw its way to the surface. What if this date was another encounter laden with pity? How could she find joy when every laugh was overshadowed by the ticking clock of responsibilities? Soon, awkward laughter filled the restaurant as Sarah, unable to stifle her nerves, made a joke comparing her unpredictable love life to her unstable monthly bills. Cringing at her own awkward humor, she caught Ethan's expression morphing from polite smile to undeniable discomfort. Her heart raced, oscillating between embarrassment and the hope of connection. But as the silence enveloped the table, she felt the crack of something slipping away, a chance at intimacy drowned in her vulnerability. It felt like every unpaid bill, every moment of guilt for not being enough, gathered weighty in the air, suffocating whatever spark might have ignited. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Later that night, in a haze of disappointment, Ethan poured his heart into an article dissecting societal expectations, exposing the raw wound of his own past. The emotional surge propelled his words to resonate online. His unfiltered honesty struck chords among countless readers. The realization of shared pain not only hit close to home but forced him to wrestle with buried memories, moments of shame and isolation poised at the edge of his mind. Within the tangled web of his musings, he caught a glimpse of Sarah's self-deprecation. The cringeworthy date taunted him, but the truth she laid bare buried deeper than mere awkwardness. There was courage he longed to understand. Meanwhile, Sarah stumbled upon Ethan's revelations, captivated by the way he dissected the struggles, both humorous and heartbreaking. The weight of truth wrapped itself around her heart. Ideas transformed into late-night confessions as they exchanged thoughts of ambition and despair, revealing the realities they simultaneously faced. Could there be beauty hidden within this tangled mess of their lives? But just as hope flickered to life, Sarah received a call that turned her world upside down. Her mother needed immediate care, the weight of impending loss crashing over her like a suffocating tide. In the sterile hospital room, surrounded by the hum of machines, Sarah struggled against the suffocating fear. Her mother's once vibrant spirit flickered like a dying flame, and Sarah, fighting against painful truths, thought back on the shared laughter with Ethan, the joy that felt like a guilty distraction. Could he help her navigate this chaos? What if their connection crumbled under the pressure? Would she be forced to choose between hope and despair? As the medical staff worked feverishly, her own thoughts became a cacophony, blending haunting realities into a singular question: was love powerful enough to rise above their burdens, or were they too mired in their own struggles? The clock ticked down, and with each passing moment, both Sarah and Ethan stood on the precipice of their fates, unaware of how intertwined their lives truly were. Alone in the sterile hospital room, Sarah felt time stretch like taffy, each second dragging painfully as she watched her mother's steady breathing on the monitor. Gabby's frail form lay motionless, her once lively expressions replaced by a serene stillness that sent shivers coursing through Sarah. The guilt of finding joy escaped her grasp, now haunting her like a ghost in the unsettling silence. Each worry piled up: financial fears, an uncertain future, and a myriad of unasked questions about the choices she had made. Was there any light left in their struggle? Did she even deserve happiness amidst the heartache? In those minutes, her fingers traced the outline of her phone, the screen still shimmering with Ethan's heartfelt words. His writing had struck a note resonating deep within her, a raw depiction of vulnerability and the yearning for authentic connection. Each passage whispered truth, shedding layers of isolation and desolation that had congealed around her. Could she reach out to him? With her world crumbling, would he still want to connect, or would he think her a burden? The uncertainty felt like blades poised at the edge of her resolve. She glanced at the clock, and then it hit her: the time had come to confront her fears. Picking up her phone, she hesitated, mulling over whether to share her turmoil with him. What if he withdrew, spooked by the weight of her emotional chaos? But what if this was her chance to lean on someone, to allow hope to weave its thread amidst the darkness? The choices she had been avoiding loomed large before her, demanding to be addressed. With trembling hands, she typed out a message. Ethan, I just received some difficult news about my mom. I'm feeling lost, and your words have meant so much to me. I could really use a friend right now. She hesitated, her heart racing as she hovered her finger over the send button. What if vulnerability repulsed him? Gathering her breath, she pressed send, and the act felt like a small rebellion against the tightening constraints of her life. Across town, Ethan read her message, an urgency igniting within him. He had been caught in the haze of his thoughts, grappling with how to transform his turbulent emotions into something meaningful. The fear of his own insecurities had held him back, but Sarah's candidness challenged him. She needed support, and deep down, he craved connection too. Flashes of their date danced in his mind: the honesty, the humor layered with pain. There was potential still waiting to blossom. Dare to show up, he thought, recalling the unfiltered courage they both displayed that night. Without overthinking, he crafted his reply. I'm here for you, Sarah. Anytime you want to talk, I'll listen. His fingers hesitated only briefly before pressing send. In that unguarded moment, Sarah felt a weight lift slightly, as if a tiny beam of sunlight had pierced through a thick fog. Perhaps this connection was worth exploring, even amidst her struggles. There was hope, still clawing to break free, and she allowed it to stir a sense of resolve within her. But as she closed her eyes, imagining the potential comfort of conversation, another wave swept over her. The harsh reality of her situation gnawed at her again. Her mother's health was declining. Uncertainty greeted Ethan's kindness with a bitter taste, spiraling into fears of abandonment if she allowed herself to become too dependent. How could she balance her emotional turmoil without pulling him under with her? Just as she began to resolve the swirling thoughts, her phone chimed again. That it was a message from Rachel, urging her to find the courage to push forward. Remember, you can't save everyone. Sometimes, you need to let others help you. Suddenly, Sarah found herself at a crossroads, faced with an internal battleground. Would she accept love and support, or would she wallow in her fortress of solitude? As she toyed with the delicate thread of possibility, she realized she needed to take a step toward healing, not just for herself, but shining the way for her mother. The fear remained, but so did a flicker of determination. A decision loomed heavy over her heart. Would she reach out and embrace the tumultuous path of love and vulnerability, or would she retreat into her comforts of isolation, avoiding the dangers of connection? With each breath, she felt the stakes heighten. What would her answer reveal about her capacity to love and accept love in return? The hospital walls felt suffocating, leading her toward a choice that felt monumental. Tomorrow would arrive with new challenges, but tonight drew her toward profound revelations. As she slowly opened her eyes, the hum of the hospital filled her with resolve. What awaited her in the days to come would hinge on whether she could allow herself to be loved. In the stillness, amid rising fears and maturing hope, she considered the price of opening her heart. The clock moved toward dawn, and with it came a new question: was she finally ready to confront her deepest fears, accepting love while navigating the chaos of life? As dawn broke, the sterile white of the hospital room felt less confining. The faint hint of morning light spilled across Gabby's still form, casting gentle shadows against the stark walls, and for the first time in weeks, Sarah experienced a moment of clarity. She wasn't merely a passive observer in her life, she had decisions to make, decisions that could ripple out and affect not just her, but those she loved. The weight of her mother's situation settled on her like a heavy cloak, reminding her that while she was grappling with her own emotional chaos, she also held the responsibility of caring for Gabby. This duality was no longer just a source of anxiety but had become a canvas on which she could paint her path forward. In that moment, she resolved to act not just to survive, but to engage with whatever life presented her, pain included. A message from Ethan surfaced in her thoughts. His simple offer of companionship looped in her mind, juxtaposed against her suffocating fears. If she could let someone in even for a brief moment, perhaps it would grant her the strength to face the harrowing hours ahead. The thought of connecting with him, of sharing the burdens she carried, felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, choosing whether to leap into the unknown or cling to the solid ground of solitude. She glanced at her phone, hesitating for a moment before pulling up the chat. How would she express the tangled web of emotions that twisted within her heart? Sarah contemplated the idea of vulnerability not as a weakness but as a pillar that could support her during this storm. A trembling resolve filled her. She was not merely looking for a crutch but forging a bridge toward healing through connection. Before she could overthink it, she typed, "Ethan, thank you for being there. I'd like to talk when you have time." Pressing send felt like letting go of an anchor, a swift movement urging her toward the winds of change, instead of allowing her fears to fester in stillness. With each passing minute, anticipation built in her chest. The rhythmic beeping of machines faded into white noise as her focus fixed on the door. What if Ethan showed up? What if he didn't? Each scenario tugged at her sense of control, but she diligently reminded herself that she was stepping out of the shadows. The uncharted territory of her emotions demanded exploration, and she could not do it alone. In the silence of the room, her resolve began to solidify. It was time to advocate for Gabby, not just as a daughter but as someone capable of seeking help. She needed to reach out to the medical staff, to ask the penetrating questions lingering in the back of her mind. What options were available? What did hope look like now? The possibility of answers swirled with her fears, igniting a rush of determination. In her mind, a new mantra took shape: tragedy does not define the future. Instead, it can catalyze change. She visualized confronting the physician later, the experience becoming a testament to her capacity to act. The thought electrified her spirit, pushing her away from complacency. Just as a glimmer of courage sparked in her chest, a soft knock echoed through the silence, jolting her from her reverie. Sarah turned, heart racing, and saw the door open, a nurse stepping inside to check on her mother. But the potential for more visitors loomed in her mind. If she could stand here, facing her mom's situation head-on, surely she could tackle the emotional complexities of her relationship with Ethan. The decision had been made: she would be a participant in her life, reaching for connections rather than retreating. With this stride in personal growth, she felt like a traveler on a road not yet taken, with the door of possibility wide open ahead of her. As the nurse adjusted the door, Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket. With bated breath, she pulled it out, an involuntary smile creeping across her face as she read Ethan's response: "I'm free this afternoon. Let us talk." But just as hope blossomed, a sudden pang of anxiety reminded her it wasn't just a conversation. It was a step toward unraveling truths she had hidden away for too long. With newfound courage, she prepared herself for the unexpected revelations that could come, the lessons wrapped in vulnerability that awaited her. In the intertwining paths of love and fear, Sarah found herself asking once more, was she truly ready to expose the fragments of her heart, along with the complexities of her mother's illness? The clock ticked steadily onward, each tick echoing like a drumbeat toward the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. She took a breath, feeling the pulse of her decisions guiding her. Today would not just be about her mother, it was about defining her own future, her own happiness. As she prepared for the challenges of the day, another question took root: was she prepared to face not only her fears but also the potential for love that could flourish from the ashes of despair? The seconds stretched as Sarah inhaled deeply, contemplating the impending conversation with Ethan. She could almost feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, a challenge designed to propel her out of her comfort zone and into the open arms of self-discovery. This was not merely a dialogue but a pivotal opportunity, a moment where her past met her future. With each tick of the clock, her thoughts danced between apprehension and anticipation, grappling with the duality of vulnerability and strength. What truths had she tucked away, shielded from scrutiny? Was it fear of rejection, or perhaps a fear of needing someone else that had held her back? The realization struck her: opening up to Ethan wouldn't just expose her heart but could also unlock pieces of herself she hadn't known were sealed away. The nurse finished with her mother's four and gave Sarah a reassuring smile, as if sensing the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. Curiosity sparked in her: was this woman aware of the brave front Sarah was attempting to project? The cordial exchange with the nurse peppered her with a sense of normalcy in an otherwise chaotic environment. Perhaps that was also what she sought from Ethan, a touch of reassurance, a reminder of the mundane amid the tumult of the hospital. Once the nurse left, Sarah readied herself for confrontation, not of the physical variety but of the emotional, existential kind. She thought back to the countless moments she had buried within herself, always retreating whenever things got too messy. Now, she had to stop allowing her emotions to govern her, especially with Gabby's condition casting shadows on her every thought. This conversation with Ethan was a step toward reclaiming authority in her life. Glancing at the time, she realized she had about an hour before Ethan would arrive. She occupied the interim by jotting down questions she wanted to ask the doctor later. What would Gabby's recovery entail? What were the next steps? The hunger for answers became a catalyst, fueling her determination to be a proactive advocate rather than a passive observer in her mother's care. With thoughts swirling, she also considered what she wanted to reveal to Ethan. This was about finding a balance. She couldn't bar him from understanding her struggles, yet should she divulge every sorrowful detail? The need for connection butted against her instinct for self-preservation. Yet something deep within her insisted that withholding would only stifle any budding relationship between them. As she mentally catalogued what she might say to Ethan, her phone buzzed again. Another message from him, a playful inquiry about if she liked coffee and whether they should meet at the cafe nearby. The simplicity of his words washed over her like warm sunlight, encouraging her to confront her insecurities. Could she let someone in, really let someone in, without the fear of being judged or misunderstood? Deciding she would steer the conversation toward her fears and aspirations rather than solely wallowing in despair, a new courage rose in her, a commitment to authenticity, to her own narrative. It was fitting that her engagement with Ethan would occur in a space outside the starkness of the hospital, perhaps helping to create a boundary that could separate her grief from their burgeoning connection. Time slipped into the background as she plotted her approach both with Ethan and the doctor. The more she prepared herself, the more her heart thrummed with eagerness, each beat inadequate to contain her swirling hopes. She was ready to speak, ready to confront, and ready to emerge renewed. Even as she braced for possible heartbreak, her gaze shifted toward the door, anticipation turning into a palpable presence. Today was not just a date, it symbolized a fundamental turning point in her life. If she could confront these realities, perhaps she could flip the narrative that had been chaining her down. Yet another thought intruded: what if Ethan wasn't who she thought he was? What if, nestled in this moment of hope, lay the unknown whirlwind, capable of altering her trajectory yet again? The prospect hovered, potent and unnerving, but she clung to her newfound resolve. She steeled herself, recognizing that to grow, she had to embrace the unpredictability. The fleeting silence in her heart whispered the final reminder: real growth often lay nestled beneath layers of discomfort, waiting to be unearthed. Was this just the beginning of her journey toward healing, or could it unravel a truth that would challenge her deeper than she dared to assume? The question lingered, heavy yet exhilarating, as she prepared for all the possibilities awaiting just beyond that door. Sarah's heart raced as she adjusted her hair in the mirror, catching a glimpse of the determination etched on her face. This was a different Sarah than the one who had shied away from vulnerability and buried her troubles behind walls of silence. Today, she felt stripped bare and free, ready to embrace a conversation that could change everything. Knowing that Ethan would soon arrive made her pulse quicken, not just from anxiety but from a burgeoning excitement, a spark she had not felt in a long time. With a final glance to verify that she looked composed, she left her mother's room. Each step echoed on the sterile linoleum of the hospital corridor, the quiet punctuated only by the soft beeps of machines and hushed conversations between healthcare staff. The atmosphere, heavy with uncertainty and fear for her mother's health, gave an almost surreal contrast to the possibility of connection that awaited her in the café. Arriving at the café, the aromas of freshly brewed coffee and sweet pastries enveloped her, a momentary balm against the tension writhing in her gut. She spotted Ethan through the glass window and felt a rush of warmth at the sight of his easy smile, which instantly transformed his features. It was almost disarming, like he was a lighthouse in a storm, pulling her away from turbulent waves of doubt. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. "Hey," she said, injecting as much enthusiasm as she could muster into her greeting. "Hi, there. I hope you don't mind, I already ordered a black coffee for you. I remembered you mentioned it last time," he replied, an easy grin still plastered on his face. "Perfect. Thank you." A flurry of warmth spread through her. As they settled into the cozy booth, the initial awkwardness began to dissolve. They shared light banter, recounting funny moments from their past while grasping delicately at the heart of what brought them here. Sarah felt the distance between them closing, her laughter mingling with his in a way that felt liberating. But somewhere between the shared smiles and gentle teasing, the internal pressure to reveal her true self began to weigh heavier. This was her moment to push past her instincts of self-preservation. She fiddled with her coffee cup, searching for the right words. "Ethan, can I be honest with you?" She dove in, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. "Of course." His gaze was sincere, inviting her to unravel her reservations. "Being here, right now, is a bit overwhelming for me. My mom, she's been in the hospital for a while now, and it's hard for me to separate myself from that." Each word felt like a small strip torn away from her emotional armor, laying bare a vulnerability she hadn't shared with anyone, let alone him. His expression softened, encouragement radiating from him. "You don't have to hide that part of you. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. I know I need to learn how to deal with my emotions better. I've always been the type to shut down, to keep people at arm's length." The admission hung in the air, weighty and raw. What if opening up to someone could actually ease that pressure? He asked, a gentle intensity in his gaze. Sarah hesitated. But what if it only makes it worse? What if it leads to judgment? Ethan leaned in, conviction underpinning his soft tone. "It could lead to understanding. You're not just allowed to feel vulnerable, you should. What you're going through is real, and it doesn't diminish you in any way." Her heart pounded, tethered between fear and exhilaration. Could she really risk exposing herself like this? But then, she felt fierce against the tide of self-doubt. "I want to try," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I want to open up to you, really open up." As she spoke, a sense of ownership swelled within her, empowering her to finally confront what had long been buried. Each revelation felt like an emotional cleaving, making space for something new. Just then, as she was poised to share more, her phone buzzed disruptively in her pocket. She ignored it for now, eyes focused on Ethan. But the insistent vibrations became louder in her mind, a reminder of the chaos still simmering in her life. What if they were just about to connect deeper, when the world outside intruded just as she was ready to let him in? A wave of doubt threatened to crash over her resolve, but beneath that lay a burgeoning realization: her journey was only just beginning. The real test would be not just risking her heart but navigating the repercussions that awaited outside this café. The moment of truth loomed between them, and Sarah could only wonder what would be waiting when she finally answered the call vibrating in her pocket. The buzzing in her pocket transformed from a mere annoyance to a haunting reminder of her reality, the one she was desperate to escape for just a moment longer. Holding Ethan's gaze, Sarah took a deep breath, weighing the importance of the call against the connection that was steadily forming between them. The tension hung in the air, thick enough to choke on, but in the confines of that café, she felt the fragile threads of her self-constructed wall beginning to fray. "I should probably take this," she said reluctantly, her instinct to run from vulnerability creeping in again. But a part of her resisted, urged by something deeper than habit. a desire to break free of emotional chains forged in silence. Ethan nodded, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. If it's important, then go ahead. I'm here when you're ready. As she pulled the phone from her pocket, a surge of anxiety mixed with anticipation shot through her. The screen lit up with her sister's name. Steeling herself, she answered, "Hey, everything okay?" "Sarah, it's Mom. I'm worried about her update. Are you at the cafe?" Jessica's voice was tight, layered with urgency, and in that moment, Sarah felt herself being pulled back from the brink of intimacy. "Yeah, but I'm just focus on her for now. I can handle things here, just make sure she's alright." The connection fizzled out, leaving behind a void filled with unspoken fears. With a forced smile, she returned her attention to Ethan, who was watching her closely. "Sorry about that," she managed, but the warmth that had enveloped them felt like it was fading. "Your mom?" he asked softly, his demeanor unyielding, filled with patience. "Yeah, it's complicated. I'm trying to focus on the now, but it's hard." His nod was understanding, which eased her pulse a little. But now, doubts began slicing through her earlier resolve, mocking her attempts to be open. "Tell me what you need," he said, opening a door she was hesitant to walk through. Taking another deep breath, Sarah found herself wavering between revealing more or re-establishing the protective barrier that had served her for so long. I just want to learn how to carry this weight but not let it drown me." The words were both a confession and a desperate plea for help. "You're already stronger than you know, Sarah. It's alright to lean on someone sometimes." His words settled uncomfortably in her mind. Leaning on someone felt risky, a gamble that somehow both thrilled and terrified her. The intensity of that thought overwhelmed her. What if I can't? She felt the edge of a panic rise, betraying the calm front she had been trying to maintain. "What if you can?" His simple question hung between them like a lifeline, and in that moment, Sarah felt a flicker of courage ignite within her. "I've never really tried," she admitted, the admission laced with a tinge of regret. Each moment she had clung to isolation translated into lost opportunities for connection. It was freeing and terrifying. Why not start now? He pressed gently, pulling her back to the core of their conversation. Opening up doesn't have to be all or nothing. Little by little can lead to strength. A wave of vulnerability washed over her again, accompanied by a realization, Ethan's presence, understanding, and kindness were anchors. But they wouldn't hold her if she didn't first learn how to confront her own fear. She glanced back at her phone, the buzzing quietened, giving her courage a reminder that circumstances pulled at her but didn't have to define her. "I want to try," she said again, more resolutely this time. "I don't want to run. Not anymore." In that declaration, something shifted within her. A ripple that echoed with the knowledge that staying meant facing more than just her mother's illness. It meant confronting the deeper wounds she had tried so hard to shield from others. With a newfound determination, Sarah realized she was ready to plunge into the ocean of uncertainty. But as moments passed, an unsettling thought nagged at her. What if, even now, she wasn't truly prepared for everything that was about to unfold? The question lingered, foreshadowing a confrontation that loomed on the horizon, one that could either solidify her growth or plunge her back into turmoil. As the cafe noise faded, she understood the world would not wait for her to sort through her feelings. She had to step into the chaos, ready or not. What awaited on the other side of her decision felt like an approaching storm, and only time would show whether she was truly ready to weather it. Ethan's gaze softened as he absorbed her words, fostering a moment of silence that felt electric. Sarah's heart raced, aware that she had crossed some intangible threshold. The walls she fortified for so long had begun to crack, exposing her vulnerability like raw skin against the harsh light of day. She could almost feel the familiar weight of doubt creeping back in, but this time, the flicker of determination was a smoldering ember, one she desperately wanted to fan into a flame. "Sarah," he murmured, his voice gentle yet probing. "What do you think is holding you back? What do you believe would happen if you leaned in a bit more?" "Fear," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper, the term stark and unapologetic. Fear of failing, fear of rejection, and honestly, fear of my own emotions. It's sometimes easier to stay in my comfort zone. For the first time, Sarah recognized her avoidance as a crippling comfort. The pattern had woven itself deeply into her life, standardizing isolation as a precaution against inevitable pain. As uncomfortable as the truth was, she forced herself to confront it. What if you allowed yourself to feel those emotions, to navigate that fear? He asked, an openness in his eyes urging her to consider possibilities she never dared to. What if you took it one step at a time? His words were a key tumbling into the lock of her heart, and for the first time, she entertained the notion that vulnerability didn't equate to weakness. It could lead to connection, real connection. I guess in my mind, expressing vulnerability means giving someone else the power to hurt me. And I can't afford to lose any more control, she admitted, the confession heavy on her tongue. Ethan didn't flinch at her raw honesty. Instead, he leaned in subtly, as if reassuring her of his presence. But isn't control an illusion we cling to in fear? Perhaps relinquishing it could lead you to something more fulfilling. His words resonated, a siren call awakening a part of her that longed for authenticity. But she wrestled with the thought, the persistent echoes of self-doubt creeping back in. What if she truly wasn't strong enough? Is it really that simple? Letting go of control? She questioned, her brow furrowing slightly. It's recognizing that control is not about pushing others away. It's about trusting yourself enough to face whatever comes. You've been through so much already. Just think of how far you've come. Examining his words, Sarah felt the tension transform into something different possibility. She was on the cusp of a realization that denying herself the chance to heal was, in effect, another form of self-sabotage. An inner voice echoed that she could only gain strength by leaning into her fears. But what would that process even look like? Would it mean opening herself to disappointment? She never considered that the act of vulnerability could be a pathway to personal growth rather than a pitfall. What if, she started hesitant, I decided to be honest? Not just with myself, but with my family. My mom, Jessica, everyone. It's terrifying, but maybe it's necessary. Ethan's nod seemed to radiate warmth, encouraging her to float this idea. Absolutely. Facing those difficult conversations is a part of shedding your past, Sarah. It will require courage to share your fears, but it will also allow others to show up for you. He leaned back, allowing Sarah to dwell in the weight of the commitment. What if she could reach out, connect, and uncover the support network she never knew was waiting for her? The knot in her stomach gradually unraveled, replaced by action-oriented energy. I'm tired of running, Ethan. I want to stop being afraid of what my truth is and recognize that it has the potential to liberate me. She could almost taste the determination, the sweet sense of freedom that lay beyond her fears. As they talked, a plan took shape in her mind, one that involved not only navigating her family dynamics but also embracing uncertainty in a way she had never done before. Just as satisfaction washed over her, her phone pinged. Again, jolting her from the newfound resolve. It was a message from Jessica, bristling with anticipation for the update on their mom. The internal excitement she felt overshadowed by a wave of apprehension reminded her that she could either face it head-on or slip back into her old ways. Taking a deep breath, she looked at Ethan, who appeared both intrigued and supportive. It seems I have a conversation to have, she said, a mixture of determination and reluctance infusing her voice. Just remember, you're not alone in this, Sarah, he reassured. As she prepared to respond, the gravity of her impending actions loomed large, a stark reminder that growth often required confrontation. Would this be the moment that marked the pivot in her journey? What stood ahead promised both challenge and clarity, but whether it led to healing or chaos was still an unanswered question hanging like smoke in the air. The weight of her phone felt heavier in her hand than any moment before. Responding would set in motion a series of conversations she had avoided for far too long. A part of her wanted to toss the device aside and retreat back into the familiar cocoon of her isolation. But the ember of determination ignited as it swarmed through her veins, reminding her that progress rarely came without discomfort. With Ethan's encouraging presence beside her, Sarah opened Jessica's message, which was filled with hopeful inquiries about their mother's condition. The earnest tone of her sister struck a familiar chord within, one that both soothed and unsettled her. Could she truly be honest about her fears and take a step closer to the family she had pushed away? "Hey, Jess. I wanted to talk about Mom," she typed out, her fingers trembling slightly over the keys. The gravity of her impending honesty loomed large. Could this lead to the connection she'd been longing for, or the very rejection she feared? She hesitated, staring at the blinking cursor, wondering how to navigate this conversation without falling back into old patterns. Every instinct in her rebelled against vulnerability, but Sarah understood that growth required her to lay bare her truths, to confront not just her fears but also the unresolved emotions that lurked just beneath the surface. After a moment of reflection, she pressed send, making a decision manifest. The road ahead felt nebulous, but she was tired of just standing at the crossroads. "It's time," she whispered, almost as if she was convincing herself that it was indeed time to confront the unexpected. Ethan's smile was subtle but spoke volumes, encouragement wrapped in understanding. It felt like a safety net, allowing her to take the leap. His steadfast posture contradicted the uncertainty swirling in her mind. Perhaps he was right, maybe confronting her fears could lead not only to liberation but also to connection. As moments passed, Sarah found herself pacing, a nervous energy compelling her to move. Each step allowed her to grapple with the terrifying yet exhilarating potential of what was to come. She envisioned her mother's face, the warmth of that smile now shadowed by unresolved tensions. Imagining her sister's reaction sent a chill through her, yet underneath that apprehension, an unfamiliar excitement began to stir. "Are you ready to take on the world, or at least your family?" Ethan asked playfully, breaking the silence that had settled over them. His lightheartedness served as a balm, yet she recognized it as an invitation, a challenge to step beyond her comfort zone. Sarah chuckled softly, though the laughter felt bittersweet. "I guess there's no escaping the inevitable. Family is complicated," she remarked, reflecting on the intricate web of emotions binding her to those she feared most. "Complicated isn't bad. It just means there's a lot to unpack," Ethan replied wisely. "But you don't have to do it alone. Remember, they love you too." The thought carried weight. With renewed resolve, she imagined the conversations that lay ahead, her mother's intricate blend of worry and care, Jessica's fierce loyalty, and the myriad emotions that had kept their family dynamics in a perpetual state of flux. Could she convey her truths without fear of judgment? Was she strong enough to let her loved ones see her at her most vulnerable? "I'll start small," Sarah decided aloud. "Maybe just with Jessica first. Once I see how that goes, I'll tackle the rest." Ethan nodded, eyes shining with pride. "That sounds like an excellent plan. Just remember, every small step forward builds your confidence." In that moment, clarity washed over her, revealing a path where uncertainty had once loomed. She felt like a coiled spring ready to release, and as her phone buzzed again, a new message from Jessica, she took a deep breath. "Okay, let us do this." Yet, as she began to respond, a nagging thought crept in, whispering doubts that could unspool her newfound courage. What if things didn't change? What if laying bare her heart didn't lead to the connection she yearned for, but instead deepened the divides? Clenching her jaw, she brushed aside the uncertainty, focused on the moment, and finished her response. But with each word, she felt the threads of her past tighten, the call for change compelling her to reconcile the discord that had surged through her family. Tonight could very well become a reckoning if only she could muster the courage to greet it. As she pressed send again, anticipation thrummed beneath her skin, mingling with trepidation. What would her next move expose? Would this journey lead her to finally reclaim her agency, or would it lay bare new fractures in her family? The next chapter of her life beckoned, fraught with uncertainty, and she could only silently wonder how courage would dance with vulnerability in the moments that awaited her. As the message sent, Sarah's heart raced. The gentle vibration of her phone in her hands was a reminder that she had opened the door to something potentially transformative. Yet, with the sender's response still lingering in the air, her mind spiraled into overdrive. What if this move fractured the already delicate structure of their family? The weight of those thoughts tangled within her, threatening to tether her back to familiar patterns of avoidance. Before she could drown in these worries, Ethan's warm voice broke through her mental maze. "What is going through your mind?" he asked, genuine concern etched across his features. "I sent it. Now I hope she replies positively," Sarah said, sounding more vulnerable than she intended. "What if my honesty pushes her away?" Ethan was silent for a moment, thoughtful. "Have you ever considered that opening up might bring you closer? Sometimes we anticipate rejection when, in reality, people are yearning to understand." His words hung in the air, nudging her toward an unfamiliar realization. It wasn't solely about her feelings, it was about the mutual desire for connection that her sister might harbor too. Just then, a notification chimed, a reply from Jessica. With a mix of eagerness and trepidation, Sarah glanced at her phone. The sight of Jessica's name felt like a lifeline and a weight. As she read the message, a surge of relief washed over her. Jessica expressed concern but also an eagerness to talk, to work through everything, together. "I have to call her," Sarah said suddenly, bolstered by the openness of her sister's response. She could feel a shift and expanding possibility that presented itself before her like a clearing in a long, twisted path. "Do it," Ethan encouraged. "You've already started. This can't just be a text, it deserves to be a real conversation. And remember, vulnerability isn't just about risk, it's also about bravery." With determination coursing through her, Sarah dialed Jessica's number. The connection rang, each beep echoing the flutter of her heartbeat until, finally, Jessica answered. "Hey Sarah. I was just reading your text," her sister's voice crackled through the line, a blend of warmth and uncertainty. "Jess, I just wanted to talk about Mom. And us, everything that's happened," Sarah began, her voice shaky but resolute. The words felt foreign yet remarkably empowering. Silence hung between them for a fleeting moment before Jessica spoke up. "I'm glad you reached out. I know things have been tough for a while. We really need to address this." As they talked, Sarah slowly peeled back the layers of her guarded heart. With each revelation, every admission of pain and misunderstanding, she felt a facade crack. It was terrifying, but the act of sharing made her burdens feel a little lighter, a little less isolating. "I've missed you, you know," Jessica confessed, her vulnerability mirroring Sarah's. "I wish we could have talked earlier." For the first time, instead of feeling cornered by the weight of their family dynamics, Sarah sensed a shared yearning and opportunity to redefine their relationship. After the call ended, adrenaline pumped through her veins. She recognized she had initiated a shift in her life, a slight realignment in her internal compass toward reconciliation. But beneath that exhilarating aftermath was another realization creeping in: she couldn't stop here. Encouraged by Jessica's willingness to engage, Sarah recognized an underlying responsibility was forming, one she needed to extend to her mother. The prospect, once daunting, now pulsed with potential for healing. A flicker of doubt remained, though. While conversation sparked promise, she knew the contentious history with their mother loomed large. What if attempting to confront those issues led to more hurt? Pulling her phone close, Sarah began drafting another message. This one would be deliberate, measured. "Mom, can we talk?" she typed, the tension of anticipation building with each keystroke. As she prepared to send the new message, she hesitated, questions swirling through her mind. Would her mother be receptive? Would they uncover mutual wounds and begin an unlikely healing journey? In that moment, she realized progress might demand not just courage, but also a willingness to face the unknown consequences of rekindled family ties. With a firm breath, she pressed send and felt the pulse of possibility. The journey was still unfolding, but embers of hope flickered brighter than they had in years, and deep down, a singular thought echoed: the time for reckoning wasn't just approaching, it was already here. But how much would it demand from her before the truth could finally set her free? As days passed, Sarah's resolve solidified into an unwavering determination to reclaim her narrative. With each text and phone call, she felt remnants of fear fade, replaced by an expanding sense of possibility. Conversations with Jessica opened a newfound pathway toward healing that sent ripples of hope through the fibers of her being. They began to outline plans to face their mother together, their conversations paving the way for mutual understanding that had eluded them for so long. That Friday, the air was crisp, filled with the vibrant scent of autumn leaves. As Sarah stood in front of her bathroom mirror, the reflection staring back embodied a sense of fierce determination. The fragmented pieces of her once fragile self coalesced around a newfound strength, honed during days filled with challenging, yet fruitful, dialogues. Today was the day she would confront her mother not just as her daughter, but as an individual ready to assert her place at the table of family truths. Arriving at the hospital, heart pounding, Sarah flipped through the mental notes she had created before embarking on this pivotal conversation. She would approach her mother with honesty, speaking not just of her own fears but of their collective burdens. The weight of her mother's illness loomed darkly over them. This moment was not merely about delivering news, but about bridging the gap that had formed from years of silence. "Hey Mom," Sarah greeted, her voice steady despite the tempest within her. Gabby looked up, eyes reflecting a blend of love and fatigue. The sight stirred painfully inside Sarah. There was no time for hesitation now. "Can we talk about everything?" she asked, allowing the words to hang thick in the sterile air. Gabby's brow furrowed, but she nodded, encouraging Sarah to continue. "I know things have been strained between us, and that we've tried to avoid discussing some difficult truths," Sarah started, carefully peeling back her emotional layers like protective bandages. "But I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. It's time to confront what's been holding us back." At first, Gabby seemed unwilling to meet her daughter's gaze, eyes flitting away as if shielding herself from impending revelations. Yet, as Sarah continued, the atmosphere shifted. The discomfort morphed into something palpable, a connection yearning to be rekindled. They spoke candidly, both exposing fears shaped by love, sacrifice, and unspoken disappointment. "I felt like a burden, Mom. I always felt I had to shoulder everything. And I don't want to hide that anymore," Sarah admitted, the words escaping her lips like fragile butterflies freed from confinement. Tears shimmered in Gabby's eyes, and for the first time, Sarah saw her mother as a fellow human navigating her tumultuous existence. "I never wanted you to feel that way, honey. I thought I could protect you from the darkness," Gabby responded, vulnerability cracking the pedestal Sarah had placed her on. "I need us to rebuild. Together. To be honest about our pain so we can move forward. This family needs healing," Sarah insisted, solid confidence underscoring her plea. In that moment, the walls between them crumbled, each retreating to vulnerable honesty in ways they had avoided for too long. They discussed fears, regrets, and hopes, confronting the unacknowledged silence that often spoke louder than any words could. It felt invigorating, their truths melding together, weaving hope into a tattered fabric of familial connection. As she left the hospital that evening, Sarah felt lighter than she had in years. The conversation had been hard, yet the sweetness of hope lingered in her heart, painting her future with hues of resilience. She had not merely confronted her mother, she had dismantled her long-held beliefs about guilt and obligation. Walking to her car, she pulled her phone from her pocket, a message from Ethan lighting up the screen. "Let us meet soon. I'd love to catch up." A smile broke across her face. She was ready. The fear of leaning into vulnerability no longer held her captive. It was a transformative encounter with Ethan that had emboldened her to step into authenticity, not just in familial relationships but in every facet of her life. In the weeks that followed, the threads of relationships began to intertwine, creating an intricate tapestry of support and connection. The absence of anxiety, replaced by a growing confidence in navigating her own emotions. With renewed vigor, Sarah enthusiastically engaged in her classroom, sharing more of herself with her students. She approached challenges with a sense of grounded purpose, no longer feeling like an imposter in her own narrative but an integral part of a larger, dynamic story. Later that spring, Sarah stood tall at her school's yearly award ceremony, a finalist for the Educator Excellence Award. Amidst applause, she remembered a time when she feared acceptance, when she doubted her abilities, when she worried the pain would define her. Yet, through perseverance and willingness to embrace her truths, she had transformed into a beacon of potential not just for herself, but for all who surrounded her. In that moment, cradled in accolades and surrounded by peers who recognized her growth, Sarah's heart brimmed with gratitude. I did this, she thought, marveling at her own journey. The weight of fear no longer defined her. Here was a woman who had unraveled the tapestry of uncertainty and woven the fabric of her new, vibrant life. As she left the stage that day, she turned to Ethan, whose familiar smile shone brightly, reflecting their shared journey of growth. Their connection had blossomed, transforming potential into beautiful reality, a reminder that beyond vulnerability lay the strength of love, understanding, and personal triumph. The journey had been undeniably profound, and with each step, Sarah had forged an unshakable bond with herself and others. This metamorphosis was not an end but the beginning of an ever-evolving process, a commitment to confront life head-on, wielding her newfound strength with grace as she poured her heart and passion into everything she touched. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the definitive recognition of her ability to shape her future. So here stands Sarah, no longer a girl cloaked in shadows, but a radiant woman who embraces her truth. Today marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of infinite opportunities, bound not by fear but by a courageous heart that conquers all. You need to subscribe now to witness the continuation of incredible stories, where lives transform through strength and vulnerability. Leave a like now to support these powerful narratives. Comment your thoughts on Sarah's journey and what this ending means for you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of motivation and authentic connection.